guys. My talk today is about imitating nature through multi-species grazing. For those of you who were at the Grassfed exchange last year, such as Will Harris, you would know that this cover crop is the one that we had the soil spit in. And it was really dry when you guys were there, and it kind of sucked because there wasn't much to show you. We didn't feel. But anyways, 2 weeks after you guys left, we started getting a lot of rain, and this is what it ended up looking like right before or during our grazing of it. So there was a lot of biomass that we created out there. And once moisture started coming, the earthworm started showing back up, and that's what the soil looked like. They're starting to harvest all that residue. So into the doom and gloom of things before I get to our solution. Houston, we do have a problem. We have a monoculture mania mentality in agriculture today, and it's pretty disgusting. We're living in a siloed nation. It's like, if it's dead, kill it again. We want to kill everything, and it's not pretty. And that's not the production model that we can follow. So our society today wants to simplify things so much as to make people brain dead, and I think it's working. There's not much common sense going on out there right now, and it's sad to see. And everyone wants a recipe card. There it is right there: diesel, seed, fertilizer, planter, sprayer, chemical, combine, tractor, grain cart, semi. And if you plant the seed in the ground, use X amount of fertilizer, X amount of chemical, you'll get a monoculture consistency, which is what everyone is aiming for. You'll receive your government check and repeat it the next year. Pretty simple, right? This is something that really bothers me, how the taxpayers really get screwed over. They're having to uphold a production model that is poisoning them and the land. And I really feel bad for those consumers that are opting out and trying to go for the healthy choice. They're having to pay to uphold that bad production model while possibly paying extra for local foods. So if you're producing the feed subsidies to thrive, chances are you're part of the problem, not the solution. So from southeast South Dakota all the way here to Missouri, 600 miles, we saw this and this, and we saw 3 fields total that had been winter wheat that were now seeded soybeans, besides Luke's place. So it was a real relief to see Luke's cover crops. And also our perennial systems, our monocultures as well, invasive species have come in because of bad management, and we need to do something about that. Saw a lot of these as well, driving past Sioux City, Iowa. It's pretty nasty. And these and these. And this is not the type of agricultural production model that we need to have. And Aiden showed a picture earlier of the confinement system. Look at all those nutrients. Those nutrients should be out on the land, not being in a sludge pump. So grass-fed beef and confinement. We need to follow the model that mimics nature and not one that mimics herd production model, because I know that my customers don't want that at all, and I don't think that that's the way of the future. So when the livestock are in the lodge, they create resource concerns, but when they're on the land, they can address those resource concerns and have huge benefits, which we are noticing. So this is a chart of the perennial grassland loss in the upper Midwest. And you can see that's the staggering rate of perennial grassland loss, and that's all going into corn and soybeans. So there goes all of our diversity. This is a pretty disgusting slide as well. Town of Butte, North Dakota, it's in the northeastern part of the state. 1954, notice all the wetlands. The wetlands are one of the most diverse ecosystems there is on Earth. And now in 2010, there's a thing called tile drainage that's catching on like wildfire. Everyone's putting it in, draining the wetlands, and we're destroying the water cycle and the whole ecosystem with it. And then when the cities flood, people wonder why, but then they want to build diversions that cost multi-billion-dollar to save their towns. So how bad can it get? I was taking some beef up to get slaughtered here this spring, and I noticed these signs along the fields, and I had to stop and take a picture, and I couldn't believe it. So here the taxpayer has to pay money to tell the farmer not to farm the ditches. That's the only diversity we have left in a lot of places. This is how bad it's getting. See that? The calf asked Mommy, what's that? There's some grass in a glass case. They're at a museum. She says that's called grass eaters. So the conventional model, we're using fossil fuels to produce a crop when there's 35,000 tons of free nitrogen in the air. If some diversity be added to those systems, they wouldn't have to use all those synthetic inputs that's poisoning the land. And it's not just the conventional model. I've got some beef with organic agriculture as well, because sometimes they're not too focused on soil health. And organic agriculture has eroded past civilizations. Last summer we toured a premier organic operation in North Dakota, and this was one of the stops. Didn't impress me very much. So with our management, we need to regenerate soils and have regenerative management, and we cannot do that with tillage, in my opinion. This is a field in Australia that my dad was fortunate to see, or unfortunate. And that field's farmed, I think it was seeded to oats, is that right? Where's the topsoil? How can we expect the next generation to make a living off of that? And he picked the big rocks too. You see the rock pile in the back. So this sums it up fairly well. We do not inherit the earth from our parents, we borrow it from our children. So we want to leave our children with a legacy that they can be profitable with. And Vandana Shiva sums it up fairly well. Nature's economy, the currency is money, or is not money, it is life. And this proverb sums it up even further. Only when the last tree has died, and the last river has been poisoned, and the last fish been caught, will we realize we cannot eat money. So, done with the doom and gloom, now I'm on to offering solutions. And that solution is to imitate nature's design from below ground up. We've got to start at the ground level and work our way up to higher forms of life. So I teach the range management class at the local college, and I take my class out. We try and go out on a field trip every week, get some out of the classroom, and we're in a living classroom, which is a lot better environment. So we were out on one of our pastures identifying different species, and we came up with 140 different species. Pretty sure when this picture was taken. That's true diversity. And we need to mimic that native rangeland and our cropland, and that's what we're doing with our cover crop business. And when I came back to the operation in 2010, I didn't bring something to the table, and I wanted to diversify the livestock sector as well. So now we've got all these livestock species out on the land where they should be. And we're harvesting different levels of energy. The perfect rotation for me would be to run the cattle and sheep together. Not quite doing that yet. Followed by the poultry and then the pigs. Each are harvesting a different level of energy, and we're maximizing profit per acre, all while regenerating soils. And each breed is dual purpose as well. We're able to direct market meat from all these species, and they're working for us on the land. So here's some of the enterprises that we're stacking. We'll definitely add more to this, but you gotta take the risk out of your operation by having multiple enterprises. Too many operations these days are just one-dimensional. So I'll move into each of those in a little more depth. I'll start with our grass finishing production cycle. If you notice in this picture, there isn't a beef animal, and there's the grass, because it all starts with the soil. And that's our main focus. The beef and byproducts that we get from healthy soil are just a bonus. So we're at the Acres Conference, and thanks to Will Winter, he showed us a library that was selling these old-time magazines. So we picked a few up that day. And flipping through them, you can see the type of genetics that they had back then. There's an Angus bull, there's the Angus cow. You know, notice the depth of body, and that's the type of animals that we need. So what happened? This is an orange, by the way. These type of animals are suitable for confinement, but they don't do very well out on the pasture. This is one of our bulls that we use, and this is one of our cows. We want them short, thick, and easy fleshing. And we say that we want them to winter on a rock pile. We want them to carry that flesh all throughout the year. That's a heifer grazing some stock native range. And our cow size matters. We kind of shoot for that 1,200-pound cow with a frame score of 3 to 4. And typically our steers will finish about 100 pounds heavier than her, and heifers 100 pounds lighter. Here's a life cycle of our grass finished cattle. We calve in May and June, have about a 45-day calving season. We keep them on the cow throughout the winter, and we'll wean them the next late March or early April. And then they're on native range pretty much the whole first year of their yearling. They follow up or finish up that year with multi-species cover crops. We might have to use some bale grazing depending on the winter. And then we finally finish them on maintained grass legumes and multi-species covers. And that's what's been working really well for us. So calving on the winter Triticale and hairy vetch. Like I said, we calve in May and June, and that's in sync with nature. And that's the way to calve. And when we're calving out there, we give them bigger moves. I'm only moving about once every 3 or 4 days when we're during the calving season. And by the 1st of July, then we'll start moving daily with the cow-calf pairs. And the calves are healthy. We used to calve in February and March when I was in college, and it sucked. Calving season used to be the worst time, I thought. I couldn't stand it. I was looking so forward for everything to be done for the calving season. And now I really look forward to it because this is how I spend my time. And I've got college buddies that are still calving in February and March, and I'll send me pictures of me out in the pasture drinking Corona. And meanwhile, they're exhausted from fighting the mud all year. So here's the pairs, and we move them on to grazing expired CRP. Or expired CRP lands are typically smooth brome and alfalfa. And we're noticing slowly that we are starting to get some native species back. So we're trying to get that diversity work back in there. And we're noticing that the forbs are starting to move in before the grasses. So eventually, maybe by the time I retire, we'll have 5 species in there, I'm hoping. And we run out one sow persistent typically, so which means we'll graze one paddock maybe 3 or 4 days of the year, and then it'll be left to recover for the rest of that year. So we're along full recovery time. We also run our pairs on native rangeland. You can see the body condition of those animals. They're doing fairly well out there with that calf at their side. Like I said before, we're moving them usually once a day. And as we go into the fall and winter months, we'll graze our stockpile native rangeland. And we don't move as often because as you can see, the ground's frozen, and it's not too much fun trying to get pigtail posts in the ground. And then moving into the winter months, that's when we use our cover crops. And I like to call them biological primers, because you ask a lot of people, what kind of cover crop do you have? And they say, well, maybe a ryegrass or a turnip. Usually it's 1 or 2 species. Well, we want to mimic that native rangeland and have multiple species out there. So that's why I like to call them biological primer, because they're doing more than feeding our livestock. They're feeding all that livestock below them. So here's some of the diversity that's in that mix that we like to use. And our mixes will vary depending on which field we're seeding into and what our resource concerns are and goals are. So I wasn't sure, I really like insects, and I wasn't sure where to put them. So this picture is taken in biological primer, and you can see all the lady beetles. The diversity is a lot more than just the plant species that are out there. Harbors a lot of insect life. And insects don't get enough credit. So many of them are getting killed right now by the midichloroid and neonics. It's pretty sad. The average cornfield monoculture right now only harbors about 6 species of life. You know, and that's not good. So these lady beetles are out there taking care of things. They're very precious animals. And then we get to the amazing dung beetle. We quit using systemic insecticides in 2007, and each year since then I've noticed a huge explosion in the dung beetle population. And now, keep in mind, we're pretty far north. Down south, you guys are more fortunate than us, and we have a lot more species than we do. But right here is 11 of them that I've identified so far, and I'm sure that there's more out there and more will start coming in. But the further removed you get from using those synthetics, the better your populations will be. And these guys are doing a great job of nutrient cycling for us. There's a couple of love bugs that I took a picture of this spring. I haven't been able to identify that species yet, but they were pretty big. I could spend all day looking at dung beetles. And the yellow dung flies, they're also very predacious, killing that fly larva. They're really prevalent early on in the spring and later in the fall. Dragonflies, about this time of year we have thousands of them around the herd. And each dragonfly can eat about 15 to 30 flies a day. They have a 95% accuracy rate on catching prey, so they're kind of the ultimate predator, so to speak. My friend Jonathan Lundgren, he's an entomologist at SDSU. He says that there's 1,700 beneficials for every one pest insect. You know, so these people are spraying their chemicals to target one insect, but they're going to kill 1,700 others possibly. You know, so it doesn't make sense. This is a picture of the orb weaver spiders, and you can see with that full recovery time, we have a lot of biomass growth out there, and they love to spin their webs. And imagine how many flies they're going to catch when the herd moves through. So that's our fly control. And here's just some population observations that I've taken throughout the year. We also have the cowbirds out there. They follow the herd year round and stay all winter. And it's nice to have.
You can see why it's not married.
That's true. Personal choice.
Smart man.
So the grazing flexibility there at the top, you can see there's kind of a low in populations right in that July time. So it's nice that we have the flexibility to move our herd, say, a quarter mile, and to move away from that fly pressure if need be. But the further we get away from using these systemics and pesticides, the better our populations become. So eventually I don't think we'll have to worry about it much at all. So back to the cover crops then. We turn the pears out there in October or November, and the goal is to graze year round. Now typically in North Dakota that does not happen because we do get quite a bit of snow and it is cold. You know, and this the cover crop keeps its feed value quite well. And those calves are doing fine out there right alongside the cow. Allow your livestock to do what they do best. You know, driving through Missouri here, I've never seen so much hay in my life. And I can't figure out for the life of me why you need hay down here. I understand that you do get some ice storms and in situations like that, it's probably necessary, but there's more hay put up down here in North Dakota. You know, some days we do live in the tundra. That's a herd of our cow-calf pairs out grazing, and they really did look like a herd of muskox. The calves were all in the middle, and the cows were moving across slowly, just grazing. This was last winter. It's pretty brutal. There's North Dakota total days below freezing, 223. So 60% of the days were below freezing. You might ask what people do when it's below freezing. Well, the red's the bars, and the yellow's the grocery stores. So that's what we do. When we're cold, we need that antifreeze. But yet we're able to harvest this beef all 12 months throughout the year. No grain supplements and not confinement. So when things get really bad, we do switch to bale grazing. Typically we move once a week throughout the winter. I'll go set up my poly fences in the fall when the ground's still thawed out. And then as they need to be moved, we'll reel up the wire and have them to the next move of bales. So we use the tractor once throughout the winter to spread the bales. And that's the only time I have to start the tractor unless I got to push some snow. Meanwhile, everyone else is out there each day feeding their cattle and spending a lot of time and money on diesel and labor. So when it's time to wean, we utilize the Fenceline Weaning. It's a very low stress way to do things. There's very little balling, and everyone seems to be content. So then the next spring, we'll have a 35-day breeding season. We don't breed until August. Those heifers, we throw the bulls in with all of our heifers, and those that get bred, they'll eventually move into the cow herd, and those that do not will go into our grass-fed program. We have a 35-day exposure. That way we can keep that cat in fairly short. So measuring nutrient density, this has been talked about a little bit, but that's a refractometer and a Brix meter. And it measures the total dissolved solids within a plant, and this is a very helpful tool for us to determine which forages we can get the highest gains out of. And that's what we like to see. We like to see a wide leaf capturing that solar energy, and the Brix will be higher in that plant. And we do put up some stored feed because it is North Dakota and we do get winter, as you saw. And we take Brix measurements before we go out and cut because we want that Brix to be up well into the 20s. So we won't cut until afternoon when the plant is cycling that energy and is highest in the Brix reading. So this is a forage chart, and this is called a Gantt chart. Making it on Excel is kind of tough. It's not very advanced. So looking at things such as a Kentucky bluegrass, this will be grown here in December and January, and that's a major feed source for us. It is an invasive plant, but the cattle actually do really well on it through the winter. So this kind of shows where some of our forage gaps are then, and we fill those in utilizing the multi-species cover crops. So some of these mixes that we use to fill in these forage gaps include forage winter wheat, winter pea, hairy vetch, and radish. We typically seed these in early September. And usually we'll graze these really on in the spring, sometimes in the winter, kind of depending on the year and the stand that we get established. The Brix will typically average about around 16. We have gained 2 pounds a day out of that. Winter Triticale and hairy vetch, average daily gain around 2 pounds. And the Brix is around 18. And we utilize these bat latches. For those of you that have seen Neil's presentation, season 1 that got us onto these, but they're solar power gate opener, so we just press in the time that we want the livestock to be moved, and they'll move themselves into the next paddock. Makes life very easy for us, and we can achieve very high stock densities that get that litter onto the soil surface and get it covered. There's a day at the office for me. I can't understand why anyone would want to be a soybean and corn farmer when they can be doing this. So there's multiple moves set up. In the peak of the year, when we're utilizing high stock densities, we'll be moving up to 7 times a day with densities of 685,000 to 700,000 pounds of live weight per acre. Livestock are our biggest tool. We can utilize them as we want, but our main focus is landscaping and regenerating our soils, and they're the best way to regenerate soils. So typically we like to eat the top third and leave 2/3 left for the soil biology and get that ground cover. That keeps the soil temperatures cool and keeps our soil blooms happy. Plus the top third of that plant is the highest in energy, so that's what we want to be running through the room. So here I'm going to show some landscaping that we did. We had the Game and Fish Department come to us a few years ago, and they had a section of land that was severely degraded, overrun with weeds. You know, it's a wildlife management area. You can go up there and never see any wildlife at all. It was void of livestock, and they realized that they needed to do something. So they came to us and asked us if we'd take over management for it. And I jumped at the opportunity to show them that livestock are a really powerful tool that can regenerate landscapes. So here we have 119 hectares on 1 acre per day. And you can see there's a bunch of noxious weeds. This whole bottom line was filled with noxious weeds. And it just so happened that we had a tour the next day with the wildlife people, and this is what they came to see. You ought to talk about jaws hitting the ground. I think they were ready to take the lease from us and not allow us back on that land. So yeah, they were concerned, but now they're really starting to see the benefits. This was 2 years ago, but we utilized that stock density to get all that little litter down under the soil surface. And you can see it start recovering here. Here was some erosion that was taking place, and this was taken the day after they grazed that. I've got a poly reel in there for reference. Here's what it looks like months later. Things are starting to regrow. Here's what it looked like a year later. You can barely see or tell that it's there. And we noticed a lot more native species growing in there. And I took this picture right before we left to come down here. So I got to be careful with the ranger now, because if I don't remember where that's at, it'll be good to follow in there. But yeah, you can really do a lot in a short amount of time with livestock, regenerating the landscape. So now the wildlife people, they come out there, and we're starting to see wildlife, a lot of deer and upland birds, and we've gotten compliments. People always go out there and run their hunting dogs. I talked to quite a few of them, and they're like, well, this is really working. You know, I was out here hunting 5 years ago, and I didn't see anything, and I hadn't been back. But it's real close to town, so a lot of people utilize that land. So we're really noticing that wildlife coming back on our own operation as well. And typically we don't charge for hunting. There's an organization called Sporting Chance, in which people with disabilities come out on our place, and we let them hunt. And sometimes the game likes to hunt you in North Dakota. We're known as the duck factory, so we have 11 ducks flying around. Okay, so moving on. The tame grass, diverse legumes, and smooth brome, we can have really high bricks on this. The highest I ever measured was 28, and that was great when the brome grass was heading out. But that's what we like to see, the diversity of them. And then a diverse warm season mix, much like the one you guys saw last year when you were up there. We can get really high average daily gains with those, and the bricks is over 20. But a diversity plays a huge role in achieving those gains. So this kind of sums it up as far as average daily gains achieved throughout the lifetime and the amount of days that it takes us. And this is on those heifers. So in total, you know, we've been harvesting a lot of our heifers between 11.50 and 12.25. And here's our cost. So it costs us $1,000.22 to get to that point. Okay, so it's been talked about how there's not many people on the land anymore, and how people are starting to move into the cities and not take up agriculture as a lifestyle. So I did some calculations in North Dakota. There's 39.4 million acres of ag land in our state, of which 28.27 million are crop land. So if we were to seed a quarter of those acres and do a diverse biological primer each year and run livestock on it, we'd have enough room for an additional 1.16 million head of cattle. Imagine how many people we could feed with that, and how many jobs we could generate with that, and most importantly, how much soil we could regenerate. So there's a change in number of farms, and that's a sad statistic to see. A lot of decreases. We need to get young people back out on the land. The problem is, in the current production model, there's not really room for young people to go back. When I was in college, there's only a handful of my classmates that actually went back to their operation because they said, well, there's not enough money to be made for me to go back. Well, if they'd expand their thinking to diversify their operations, there's plenty of opportunity. So moving into the other species now, I got hair sheep 2 years ago, and I decided to go with the hair sheep because I did not want to have to mess with finding someone to shear the wool for me. And they've been great. We decided to go with the tubs, and we got them from a guy north of us 100 miles. So I knew that they'd be suited to our climate. And last year you couldn't see them because they were on the planned grazing system. Wherever they planned on going is where they went. This year I am doing a little better job containing them. About 5% of the time. But eventually I'd like to run my hair sheep with the cattle as an ultimate goal. But when we put in all our infrastructure 5 years ago, someone would have told me or asked me if I was going to run sheep, I would have laughed at them. So eventually the goal is to run the sheep with the cattle because we're harvesting a different level of energy. I've never seen an animal so happy to graze an annual wheat in my life. So turning something negative into a profit is great. And that's what we're able to do with sheep and chickens and pigs. So we tried a Dorper ram, and we're getting some crosslands down. Haven't harvested any of those yet. The cutout of our sheep is about 55% or 57%, and we get about 40 pounds of saleable product. And people that were direct marketing too really like the flavor of the meat, so it's good to hear. And I hope to get up to a sheep flock of maybe 100 or 200 head. Kind of depends. There's a little guard dog we got running around. But there's our sheep net profit per head, $207.50. And we could definitely increase our prices on sheep, but the thing about being from North Dakota is that there's not a lot of diversity as far as people go, and a lot of people have never eaten them in their life. So I'm trying to keep the prices a little lower, get them to try it, and eventually we'll likely increase our prices. And there is more ethnicity moving into our state, and we've noticed that those sales to different ethnicities are really starting to improve. So moving on to the chickens, we raise both meat birds and laying hens. And as you'll see, they're very profitable. I love raising chickens. This is a portable pen that we move daily. And we try and run our chickens right behind the cattle. That way they can pick through the manure and get all the fly larvae out. That portable pen there is an 8 foot by 16 foot and can hold about 40 brooms comfortably. This one's a little bigger. I converted an old grain auger into this, so there's a good use for it. And we like to sell a 5-pound dress bird. It seems that our customers really like a bigger bird. So these guys, this picture is taken right before we left, and that's what I'll be doing next week when I get home. Chicken butchering. And we sell a 5-pound dress bird for $20. So the butcher day looks like 3 of us can butcher 100 birds in an afternoon. So right now we're raising about 400 meat birds, and we can't keep them in stock. As soon as, before they're slaughtered, they're even sold. So in North Dakota, there's no state inspected facility for poultry, so that's something that we're working on. We hope to get. So right now we legally raise 999 birds per year. We put them in the heat shrink bags and staple the top, and that presents a really nice product to the customers. And we have our customers come out to pick up their chickens. So the egg production, a lot of you guys saw that egg-mobile last year. I used the 16-foot trailers and cut a hole in the side and use that photosensitive door. So in the morning when the sun comes up, the door raises, chickens come out. And at night, the sun goes down, the door lowers, all the chickens are inside. Really helps with predation. And eventually I hope to train some livestock guard dogs to guard the chickens, but I haven't yet. This is when I first started into it. I had a bunch of leghorn hens. I kept the netting around it, but I do not keep electric netting around my hens anymore. You know, they'll range out about 100 yards, and they don't get too far away from home base. And we'll move that trailer about once every 3 days. So that's what the inside looks like. Open up the back door, the nest boxes are hanging on it. Makes it really easy to collect the eggs. We've got roosts in there and then a gravity-fed water reservoir. This is the difference in nutrition. Which one comes from the supermarket? One on the left, yeah. So our customers, you know, they visually see that eggs we can sell 300 dozen a week, no problem. We have people line up an hour before market opens to buy eggs. So it's one of the, if not the most profitable enterprise on our operation. And it's very simple to do. If you want to get a young person started in agriculture, just get some chickens. It's a little joke. Poor girl is out of pigs, she's going through my pods. We don't process any of our old laying hens. We just let them pass on of natural causes. To me, I can't get enough to make it pay to process those birds. So, and we've got laying hens out there that are 6 years old now and still producing for us. So it's if they're in a healthy environment, you know, they'll definitely last longer than you'd expect. So the pigs, thanks to Will Winter for hooking me up. We got these Berkshire Mulefoot crosses. I bought 4 Berkshire sows this spring, and I tried a couple of Canberra fields. You know, the pigs have been awesome so far. We've been running them in the shelter belts, shaded tree areas, and I could sit there and watch them all day. There's one of the Canberra fields on right there. So they're allowed to go in the shelter belt and come in the corral where we've got some annual weeds. And we're moving the pigs about once a week. I found it's been working pretty good for us. So I made the Baconator out of another old hogger that we didn't have any use for. So we can just pull that around the pasture wherever they are. It's got the water on there, and then the feeder. And those guys right now, they were born mid-April. I'd say they're weighing probably around 100 pounds. Hopefully be ready for the holiday season this fall. So here's the ration that we are feeding them and our meat birds. 60% non-GMO corn, 20% peas, and 20% barley. We seem to be gaining really well on that. Yeah, we're feeding this to the meat birds. Our laying hens get wheat screenings. That really keeps the cost of egg production down. And plus the hens only about 30% of their diet will come from those wheat screenings. The rest comes from out-ranging. So all this leads to building soil on our operation. In 1993, when we started no-tilling, organic matter levels were at 1.7%. And as we moved on and started diversifying our cash crops and our cover crops, and we added multiple species of livestock, you just keep building soils. So now some of our cropland is rated around 7%. And those that were there last year and saw that soil, we do have some soils of over 11% organic matter. And that's utilizing high diversity of plants and livestock and herb resources. Plus you're producing food that is very high in nutrient density. That's what that soil looks like. So soil carbon, as was talked about earlier, is a key driver for the nutritional status of the plant, the animal, and the person. So it's also a key driver in moisture holding capacity as well. So this is what we've noticed by storing more carbon. 6,625 gallons of water per acre, additional stored carbon. So addressing the encroaching diversity desert, there's a huge diversity desert going on right now in the United States. And we need to maintain that local integrity. So we tried, this was a few years ago now, a garden biological primer of 70 plus species through the garden seed in the drill with some cover crop seed, and went to town. And then we also, this is how we plant our potatoes, put a layer of compost down, go place our potatoes, and then unroll some second cutting alfalfa over the top. That's what the potatoes look like when they're coming up through there. And when you peel the hay back, there they are. So you don't have to till any soil because obviously we don't leave any tillage. Very easy way to produce potatoes. And that's what it looks like when we're done. All the potatoes are harvested, and it took 3 of us like a half hour to harvest that. Very easy to do. So this year I tried, you get those areas where we bale graze, where there's some residue left. I figured, well, that looks like a perfect potato growing spot. So I threw some out there, and we've got decent growth on there. So we've got potatoes growing up in the perennial lands where there wouldn't have been no other plants growing. So it's a great way to utilize that space. So that's what harvest looks like. You know, we went out in the cover crop garden and picked what we wanted, and we could either sell it or we had enough zucchini to feed the chickens for 10 years. So there was so much produce out there, but it's a very simple way to raise produce for your family. So I call it the biological feast, because after that we ran our grass finish beef out there, and then we followed with our laying hens. So we got 100.1 pounds of saleable beef per acre, 3,570 eggs produced per acre, and then just over 5,000 pounds of vegetables produced per acre. So look at how many people we were able to feed just by stacking those enterprises. And then if we were to run meat birds across there, that's how much pounds of saleable chicken we can get per acre for the meat birds. And then also think of the food that we produce for the others, insects and all those livestock underneath the soil surface. So here's what the biological feast look like. The produce and what we are able to gross per acre. Those are most of the species that we had out there we were able to harvest. So just over $4,000 an acre gross income. Our net income was just over $3,000 per acre. Everything was figured out there in the marketing, seeding, flower, seeds, and then the seed for the cover crop. And when we brought the grass finished beef through, we added an additional $983 per acre. And then our eggs, this is a big money maker, an additional $7,442 per acre. So when you stack all those enterprises on those acres, it doesn't take very many acres to make a living. So I don't understand why all these operations are getting bigger. Really, they should be getting smaller and allowing more people to come onto the land. And then pastured poultry, this is what we're able to net per acre. And they're very profitable too. We could increase our prices on our whole birds, and we probably will in the future. So now let's do a little comparison to monoculture corn crop that we saw so much about right now. Total net profit per acre for that is $365.05. And if you figure an average soil loss of 4.5 tons per year, you know, what's that costing you in nutrients in future production? That's a degraded landscape. So if we look at the biological diversification that we had in that cover crop garden, stacking all those enterprises, our total came to $11,266.31 net profit per acre. So that wouldn't take very many acres at all under that regime to make a living. Plus our added soil organic matter, we figured there's $171 worth of nutrients in there that we were able to gain. Plus the value of that added water that I explained earlier. Another 6,000 gallons of water we're able to put in that soil. So I pose this question: why don't most farmers and ranchers grow their own food? You know, it's saddening, but many producers won't even consume the food that they produce, but yet they're willing to feed it to other people. And that's pretty sad. So we need to have a paradigm shift. Is this your customer? You just dump your commodity off at the local elevator? Or do you sell nutrition directly to your customers? My goal is to know every customer that buys our product. It's the one-on-one relationship that builds transparency and a trust in that relationship that's absolutely necessary, I believe. So we go to farmers market 3 days a week, and you know, we've been able to sell beef a week, 300 dozen eggs a week. All the chickens that we raise will be sold in a matter of a day or two. And we haven't slaughtered any pork yet, but I imagine that'll go really quick too. And lamb we're selling probably one every week and a half. So sales have been phenomenal, and the feedback that we get from the customers is amazing. I've almost had people in tears because they're able to get this type of product. So it's really humbling to see. These are the main questions that we get from our consumers. First thing they want to know is where are we located? And from our market, we're only 7 miles away. And the second question they ask, are there any GMOs involved? And I wouldn't touch GMOs at the 10-foot pole because a lot of people ask that question. Thirdly, they ask, are there any antibiotics or hormones in this product? And fourth, do you host any tours? You know, we have a lot of people come out to our place and they'll bring their kids and see all the livestock, and they want to farm after they leave our place, and that's a good feeling. So to sum it all up, healthy soil equates to clean water, healthy plants, healthy animals, healthy people, clean air. And this is the type of production model that we need to be following, nature's model. So this is our trademark, Nourished by Nature. It has been a long time coming. We bought into a slaughter facility that's 80 miles away from us. There's only 2 other state-inspected facilities in our state. So we were able to get that project up and going. It finally opened in January, so that allowed us to sell our product directly to the customers. And we sell everything that we raise under the Nourished by Nature trademark. All right, thanks.